So good evening to everyone. My name is Kieran O'Sullivan, and I'm going to get the ball rolling. So in terms of what we want to look at this evening, we want to look at Maths Eyes. We're going to move on to the second slide if we can there, Terry. And really what Maths Eyes is about just getting people to kind of realize that there's maths in the world around them. It's not all about number. It's not all about counting. And it will provide new ways of considering familiar things, looking at familiar things, and just seeing the maths that's in everybody's daily life, leisure, or work. And we're hoping that from a teacher's point of view, it gives a new way of getting people to talk about maths. And we're particularly excited by the fact that the NCACA is doing some work for teachers to try to help them, to help parents and their children to use the Maths Eyes approach to try and talk about the maths that's in their lives at home and so on. So the important thing from a teacher's point of view with this is that you try to develop a kind of a way of looking at the world which uses different lenses. Because if you can do this, then it'll be much easier to see past the just how many type questions that some people think if it's not counting, it's not maths. So in terms of the kind of lenses that we talk about in the Maths Eyes concept, there's number, which we consider has algebra and measures in there because it's very hard to kind of disembody the number 3 from 3 buses or 3 whatever. So we tend to kind of think of number in the context of it being applied. We'd like to think in shape and space, data handling and chance. There's a lot of data handling now in the world in terms of trying to assimilate information. Patterns and relationships, we think is very important because it's the concrete, I know as an applied mathematician, it's the concrete springboard for algebra in a lot of things that people do at a higher level in terms of applied mathematics. But patterns and relationships, we found that particularly primary school children love spotting a pattern and they love trying to draw relationships between things. And kind of joining all of those together is this concept of problem solving, just to try to see in the real world, how can you look at things in the real world and without using a measuring tape or a ruler or whatever, is there ways of trying to estimate how tall a tree is, how fast the river's flowing and so on. So it's the ability to be able to use the mathematics to think about problems in the real world. And what we found is that if you can just have those 4 lenses, as we call them, and they kind of align a little bit to the strands in the primary curriculum. If you can have those 4 lenses with whatever you're doing, whether it's looking at images that the students have taken, photographs that the students have taken or drawn or whatever, or thinking about even designing a maths trail around your own school, or thinking about, as we call, out and about Maths Eyes work, where you're trying to talk to children about thinking about, if they're going shopping, what kind of things they should be keeping their Maths Eyes open for. If you can try and attack each of those tasks with these 4 different lenses on, it really is very effective in broadening out what the conversation is. And although this project is called Maths Eyes, it's really about conversation. That's really the real depth, and for development for everyone is in the conversation that happens around the whole process of trying to open your Maths Eyes to the real world. And speaking of which, when we're looking at images, the most important thing is this idea of a tagline. So at a very straightforward level, if you can use one of the posters that's in the Maths Eyes resource pack, or if you have something in the room, or there's something in the playground, or there's something somewhere in the children's environment, and you can try to come up with a tagline, which is not really a statement about the thing. It might be spotting a pattern, but the really good taglines are to do with familiar things, but they kind of embody curiosity. They're trying to get people to be curious about the things that they see, from one of the four lenses point of view. And the best way we found with this is just to get stuck in and actually to try a few. So this is where we're going to start getting a little bit interactive. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Terry McGuire, and we're going to do a few hold and share sessions with some posters.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here as well. The one thing I suppose that about the taglines, as Kieran said, is that, and I'd like to add to it, is that there's no wrong tagline. And that if you look at through the different lenses, there are many possible taglines for any particular poster. And that's the bit that Kieran was talking about using this as opportunities to have conversations. So what we've done is we've a few examples of some pictures here. We have examples of taglines on the left. And we're going to do a process called hold and share. So we're going to use the chat box. And I want you to look at that particular poster, and I want you to choose which tagline you think suits it best. But I don't want you to actually press return to put it into the chat until I ask you to, so that all of the answers come in together. So have a look at the picture, look at the different taglines, decide whether number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 actually you think could actually match this particular poster. And when I ask you to, press return and all of the answers will come into chat together. So if you just think about it for a second and get ready, type the number in, but don't press return yet, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, can you all share, please? Okay, so it looks there. 8, 8, 8, 8. Everybody seems to have chosen number 8. Okay, would it surprise you that the actual tagline that came with this poster on the website is number 1? Okay. So what I'm saying is that again, the number 8, how many shapes can you see? Absolutely perfect. But the one that was actually came on the poster that's on the website is it a diamond or is it a square? So it's just to show you that there can be different taglines. Okay, we're going to continue and try another one. You get better and better with your maths eyes the more you actually look at posters and think about the taglines. Great. Let's start with this one. It's the sign for the Lewis. So I want you to do the same thing, hold and share. Just take a minute to look at the poster and then see what tagline you think best fits the poster. And when I ask you to, I'll ask you to share. Just wait for a moment. Okay, can we share? So there's a bit of variety of this one from number 1, 5, 3. Okay, so again, so number 3 is parallel activity, yes. And number 1 is a diamond or a square, and number 5, 2, 3, 5, 5. Okay, so then the next, I have no idea why this is here. Right, the next picture, we're just going to continue. You're into the routine now. So just look at the picture and then decide which tagline you think fits it best. I'm going to ask you to share your answer. Share, please. So number 2, circles or polygons. Number 8, the shapes. Number 2 again. Number 8. And number 9. Okay, so for this particular one, the actual tagline that's on the poster on the website is number 5. 2, 3, 5, Y. And if you look very closely, you'll see there's 2 yellows, there's 3 reds, and there's 5 blue curlers. And just, I'm just going to go back for a minute, sorry, pardon me. And just, I forgot to tell you that the actual tagline that went with this on the posters on the website is number 8. But again, as I said, there's many different kind of taglines that you can have with different posters. And it's about talking about why you've chosen the tagline and which is the best tagline, and why there are different taglines is a really important part of Maths Eyes. So this one, our last one in this series. If you, again, we'll hold and share. So if you could just have a look, decide what number you're going to put in, and then we'll share. Okay, share. There's one, so we've chosen one around shapes, and most people have chosen is better, bigger, better. And on the website, actually, the tagline that went with this poster when people submitted it was "is bigger better." So Kieran, I'll hand over to you now to continue the process of developing the Maths Eyes and the taglines.
The beauty of that kind of exercise with those pictures is it doesn't really matter what the pictures are and what the taglines are. But that kind of exercise that we've used before is just brilliant in terms of getting people to realize that there's a whole load of different ways and there is no wrong tagline. And the taglines that get you curious and looking and really thinking about the image from whatever lens you're going to use, they're the really, really effective taglines. And if it can have a bit of humor in it as well, it never does any harm. So there's no wrong answers there. But again, from the point of view of trying to kind of think about the world and opening your Maths Eyes in the world, this idea of using these lenses, it kind of matches up with the strands that are there in the primary curriculum. Now I know the strands are probably going to change slightly, but if you look at them for primary and secondary at the moment, they're number, algebra, shape and space, measure and data. And so if you can just, when I'm doing any Maths Eyes work, like recently we designed a maths trail up in May Park in Artane with a local community group, and it was the first time we did a preschool version of it. But I was going out to help them do it, and the only piece of paper I brought with me was the piece of paper that had quantity and number, shape and space, pattern, relationships and data and chance written on it. Because I knew that when I was going around the park with the group, thinking about the questions we were going to ask, if I had those 4 things on a piece of paper, just to remind me to keep spreading it across the 4 different strands, that would be the important thing, and would get richness to the conversation that we're going to have about the Maths Trail. So we're going to go to another activity, and the next activity is we're just going to show you a photo, and we're going to ask you to try to think of a tagline for a particular lens. So this one, which is just a fence outside the guard station in Tallaght, we are just going to ask you to try and come up with a tagline for the shape lens for this picture, and if you wouldn't mind popping it into the chat, that'd be brilliant. And sometimes instinctive is best, so whatever your first tagline is for this, pop it into the chat and we'll have a look. And there's a prize of my great gratitude goes to people who just put things in there. So we've got how many triangles are there? How many triangles can you see? How many shapes can you see? That I like all of those. What types of shapes you can see? I like that one in terms of the how many triangles is a really interesting one, because it seems like a real obvious one, but actually when you start looking at it, you can start seeing, well, there's 4 little triangles, and then there's the kind of the triangle that's on the diagonal, if you want to think of it like that. There's a whole world of kind of I've seen people design taglines around that photo too, with multiplication and grouping and so on. How many symmetrical shapes can you see? These are all gorgeous and brilliant. How many different types of shapes you can see? Brilliant. Now you're really into it. So we're going to move on because time is against us. So we're on to the next tagline. The next photo we're going to give you, and this time you're going to get the opportunity to use the
Pattern.
Annie lens, sorry, it's pattern lens. Sorry, haven't got my glasses on. Should have gone to Specsavers. So pattern. And again, if you can think of any pattern tagline at all, pop it in. What pattern can you see? What types of patterns do you see? Using color, how many different shape patterns could you create within the shapes? Oh, that's really kind of good. How many different patterns can you create within the space if you had a different color involved? Absolutely brilliant. Anybody else want to share one before we head on into the next activity? Square, rectangle, square, rectangle, square, rectangle. That's kind of really interesting. That's kind of moving past the triangles and moving on. That's really, really good. So one more, and then we'll talk about just kind of good practice on the things. So here's one. Any lens you want, you can look at that windmill and come up with any lens you want to come up with any tagline you want. And as soon as you've got a tagline, pop it into the chat. So I'm going to ask people to pop in. How many can you see symmetry? How many parallel lines do you see? Somebody's put in a lovely question there about hexagon. Lovely. 2 or 3D shapes. That's gorgeous, because you're kind of getting to explore the variety of shapes that are there. Absolutely brilliant. Which one is closer to you? That's interesting in terms of perspective. Really good. So, how many parallelograms can you see? One last one. So, a nice bridge in Tallaght. Again, any tagline you want, any lens, and share it on the chat. And the important thing about these photos when we were doing the work in the Tala areas, these are photos taken in the area. They're in the environment that the local children are used to. So it's important, we think it's important that any images or photos that you use are things that are accessible to the students. What curved lines, what straight lines do you see? How many right angles can you see? Yeah, there's a bit of work to do there. Is the water at a higher level than at the bottom of the bridge? Really interesting in terms of kind of depth into the photo. How many right angles can you see? Anybody else got a tagline they'd like to share on that one? Perpendicular or parallel? Yeah, there's a lot of description there in terms of the in terms of that. What's the name for the shape of the weir? Very good. How many different angles are within the photo? That's different types of angles. Yeah, that's absolutely super. But it's a very normal photograph, but it's a very rich photograph. And what I'm looking about it is that people are looking at it from a few different. There's a little bit of thinking about angle. There's a little bit of thinking about shapes. There's a little bit of thinking about counting. There's a little bit of thinking about levels to do with the picture that's in front of you. And so, just to summarize on this aspect of looking at photos, we have a couple of guidelines on good practice. When you're engaging with this with any kind of learners who are trying to work on it. Most importantly, if you use the lenses, you'll see more than number. That's our experience from all the learners we've worked with in the past. And choosing the pictures that people can relate to. So pictures from the local area work really, really, really well. It's very important that you kind of make sure that they match the level of the group that you're dealing with. And the prompt questions initiate discussion, and sometimes the discussion, which is hard to do over Zoom, sometimes the discussion is the richest part of the whole conversation, because asking the question, why did you pick that tagline? What are you seeing in that photo? Why did you think about that? Sometimes they are the conversations that will bring the depth to the whole process. And the last thing is, in terms of this, as you know yourselves, waiting and giving people time to think. Sometimes silence is the most powerful thing in a classroom. Just giving people time to think about the photos and not to go too fast, so that they can see those photos and see that mathematics through their eyes, not through what you think your eyes should be, that you think they should be seeing. So they're the absolutely crucially important things. And as Terry has put in the chat, well done to everybody for engaging with all of that. It's absolutely, it's very scary to be doing this stuff over Zoom. And it was brilliant that everyone kind of got involved in that. And we promise there's no more interactive things left to do. So we're just going to wrap up by talking a little bit about maths trails and resources. So in terms of doing a maths trail, there's loads of examples of maths trails on the haveyougotmathseyes.com website. Don't worry about the .com, it's just we couldn't get .org. So the everything there is free. It's been developed by a combination of various partners, schools, teachers, lecturers, the public, whoever is there and involved. And we've developed some maths trails. They're good little examples of the variety of questions you can ask. They're always a great resource. You'd customize them obviously for your local area or for your local local school or whatever. But there's loads of resources there in terms of maths trails and some guides on that. And the latest thing we've been working on with the NCA in terms of developing this resource is to develop a set of sample questions or STEM questions that people can use when they're out and about. So we've developed them for shopping and so on. So there's one of the lists of questions we've got. And our idea would be that perhaps teachers might think about using this with their students and the parents of their students, and they might say to them a homework of the weekend, here, try some of these questions if you're going shopping at the weekend. But you'll see that even within that bunch of questions, there is a huge variety of things in terms of thinking about lenses, and yet thinking about, they're not made up questions about doing sums as such in the supermarket, but it's just being observant, being curious about what's there, identifying the different shapes. How long will the shopping take? How much will the shopping cost? And getting everyone to guess. And I know that I used to do that with my own family when we were doing the shopping, and it was a really rich bit of fun apart from anything else. But also it just gives you an opportunity to talk about maths that's not talking about maths in the context of a textbook. So I don't really have anything else to say about that, Terry, unless you want to jump in there with something, and you're going to talk about resources then.
Yeah, no, I'll catch up. I'll talk about the resources and I'll bring it in then. So we do have a MathSizes website, as Kieran said, haveyougotmathsize.com. It's in the process of redevelopment, so keep an eye to it, because early in the new year, our big new MathSize website will be launched. On the website, there is some really useful resources, as well as having the sort of guidelines for doing maths trails and some samples maths trails that you can work with. And one of those is there's a resource pack that you can download, and within that resource pack there's, I think, six different posters with and each one of them has a series of STEM questions that you can build on. So it's a good place to actually look at how to think of it, how to think about the posters and how to think about the taglines. And there's more information there about how to go about developing the MathSize with your students. There's also some fun activities in the resource pack that you can do. So I would advise you to go have a look at it and see the resources that are actually there. In addition, we have a post-it gallery, so we have a huge load of images, and part of the new website design is to actually get all these images sort of categorized. So you might go in there looking for images that have lots of pattern, and you'll be able to pick out them. So that's part of the new website design. But in the interim, all of the competition entries that we've got, all of the gallery of photographs that we've taken over the years are available to download. And there's lots of ideas, if you look through those, about the kinds of approaches that people have taken. And you get lots of ideas about the kinds of taglines that work well. There's also a video on the homepage of the website that tells you about the MathSize concept. It's quite short, but it actually explains what we're trying to do. So it's a really good start if you have a class to play the video so they know what's happening and what MathSize is all about. And finally, the bit that's we're really excited about, because it is Maths Week, and we know lots of people have been working on MathSize, is that we have a MathSize poster and project competition that we run out every year. So the poster competition involves you getting your students to take a picture around their own area. It has to be their picture. They can't take the picture from the internet. They have to take their own picture from their own area. They can take it around their house, around the road, around anywhere, and to actually think up a tagline. And they upload the picture and their tagline with their name and their school through the MathSize website or through the Maths Week website, and I'll give you the details of that now. We have prizes for the best image from each of the schools, and also we have prizes for different age category winners, which are under 7, under 11, under 7, 11, there must be
14, 18,
14, and under and over 19. Yeah. You also then, the other thing that we're encouraging you to do is to do a poster a project. And the project is that you decide together as a group to do some MathSize activities, and you can do it online, you can do it together. And what you have to do to enter the poster competition is to tell us, at the project competition, is to tell us who is involved, tell us what you did, tell us your favorite part about it, and submit 4 or 5 photographs that you took as part of this project. And that's just on a PowerPoint presentation. So what I've done is we've prepared this video that gives you all the information, and that's going to be available to remind you both on the Maths Week website and on our own website. So I'll just let you have a look at it. So that's it from me.
I'd just like to say thanks to everyone for taking part, and thanks for being such good sports about firing things into a chat. I know when you're coming along at 6:30 in the evening, you may not have been expected to be so active, but hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hopefully you can get yourselves and your students out there using their maths eyes. Thanks a lot for coming.